Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Logan. This is a 20th Century Fox transplant brought over, obviously, when Disney acquired them, of course, with all the X-Men films. This is Wolverine's final story. Yes, I know, he's coming back. Hugh Jackman is coming back as Wolverine in the next Deadpool movie, but as far as he knew at this point, Hugh Jackman, this was going to be his final performance as Logan, as Wolverine. And honestly, when you think about this, this is a movie that's unlike any other X-Men movie, Marvel movie, before or since. I mean, yes, we've had dabblings in horror with Blade and New Mutants even more recently, and even Man-Thing, if you can find that movie, which is not on Disney Plus. You can hardly find it anywhere, but it predated the MCU and everything else, but it's out there. It exists. There's comedy, of course, in Deadpool and Wolverine. Yes, he's played Wolverine X times, like 10 times, even just in cameos and things like that. And this might have been his 10th performance. I can't remember offhand, but this is easily the most traumatic and true to the character, even though, yes, it features, spoiler, if you didn't know already, in this 2017 film, the death of Wolverine. This is, among other things, I mean, in the comics, there's a lot of dark timelines, realities, multiversal, alternate realities, and things like that, the Age of Apocalypse being one of them, the Days of Future Past, all these different things where the mutants pretty much lose. And this is one of them. I can't imagine that when they started out the X-Men films, they ever thought that they would go, hey, you know what? They really are going to lose in the end. You want to have hope that the X-Men exist. Their whole purpose is to give people hope, people who are disenfranchised, people who are outsiders, the other. It's always been a story of hope and inclusion and treating others, regardless of how different they are, as you would treat yourself. And in this case, the world hated and feared them like crazy. And rather than sending giant robots after them, or a powerful mutant that, like Apocalypse, to cull the weak and let the strongest survive, well, you get a world that uses science to put something in the corn syrup that makes pretty much chokes out the genes that cause mutancy to exist. That's the little backstory. That's not even part of the main story at all, but we get that throughout. That's peppered in throughout as the reason why the Wolverine, Logan, is, despite his long life and ability to heal, which is quickly diminishing, he and Professor X are the last mutants that anybody knows about. There might be a few here and there, but for the purpose of this story, Professor X and Logan are the only ones who are left. Patrick Stewart, of course, reprises his role as the professor, and it's also his last performance, as far as he knew, as Professor X. They kind of both, once they realized what they had made here, that they were like, we're not going to come back to the characters. This is a pretty definitive and kind of great finish, like a respectable, not like, oh god, like Professor X got killed in X-Men 3 Last Stand, like early on in just horrible way, and then they brought him back again. None of that made any sense. It doesn't matter. In this, even if those other films didn't exist, this is just beautifully done. And it's it's kind of the movie we always wanted, Wolverine, because it's rated R. By the way, it's 2 hours and 19 minutes long. It's from 2017, and it's rated R. There's never been, prior to, well, except for Deadpool at the time, there'd never been an X-Men or Marvel rated R film and man thing. And well, was Blade, any of the Blade films are? I think they might have been. Yeah, they're fairly bloody. If they weren't, then I'm misremembering. But this is the Wolverine film we always wanted and also didn't want, because we kind of want him at his peak. You know, we want him strong, just plowing through guys. But that's the outcome is always decided before the fight even starts. You know the Wolverine's going to win no matter what when you have him at that stage in his life. This is not a given. This is a Wolverine that is Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Yeah. This is a guy who's been beaten down. This is a guy who's lost so much. And I won't spoil that in case you didn't see this yet, why there are no X-Men. This is a man who, when we see him first, he wakes up in a limousine that he's the driver of. I guess he's in Texas, in El Paso, just driving a limousine for bachelorette parties and proms and just random losers here and there. And he's living his life to make money so that he can just take the professor far away from anybody that might find them. And, oh, by the way, they also have Caliban. If you know your X-Men, you know that Caliban is a white-skinned mutant who can track other mutants, can detect other mutants. Played by Stephen Merchant, who is more known for his comedy and more than anything else. The Office in UK. Yeah, and other things. So many things with Ricky Gervais. But he is known for his comedy. He does provide the most amount of comedy in this because he pretty much goes to head verbally with Logan because they're both in charge of taking care of the professor. And things are pretty much miserable for everybody involved until things get worse. When suddenly this woman begs for Logan's help to take care of what appears to be her daughter, a little girl named Laura. She's maybe 10 in this or whatever, played by Daphne Keane. It's in fact, in the credits, is presenting Daphne Keane. And she's a mostly mute little girl. You assume that she's not talking because she was raised in Mexico and only speaks Spanish, or maybe only understands Spanish, but you understand a little bit more about her as we go along. And you get to discover pretty quickly, well, about 35 minutes into the film, I checked, you get to discover her mutant ability, which she wasn't necessarily born with, technically. Well, she was, but they don't say the clone word, but she's essentially a clone grown in a lab of Wolverine. And she has, in the comics, she does become Wolverine. She's known as X-23 at first. And she comes, by the way, in the comic, it's a lot more tragic and upsetting origin as well for this character when she first appeared. But no less brutal. And in this case, though, she was raised to be a killing machine, well, just like in the comics. And in this case, though, Wolverine finds her much sooner than she was ever found in the comics. And she has claws, just like he does. It's their effort to try to recreate Weapon X. And that's why she gets the designation X-23. And in the comics, she eventually does become Wolverine when Logan dies. And like I said, Logan does die in this. Do we see her as Wolverine? Did she put on a costume? No, not at all. This is not a costume superhero movie. In fact, this is pretty much not a superhero movie at all. In the superhero movie, you see people who fight against adversity, whether it's, and they overcome it. Even if they have to sacrifice themselves, and they overcome it for the betterment of humanity or mutantdom or anybody else, just in service of others. That's what they do. And Logan very much does that. In fact, it's a struggle against himself, figuratively and literally. He is struggling against his darker impulses and also a darker version of himself. If you ever wanted to know who would win in a fight between Wolverine and Wolverine, well, you're about to find out. And Wolverine and X-23, well, there's a little bit of fighting between them as well, claws out and everything. But there is James Mangold, the writer and director of this film. He is, I don't know, is he doing the next Deadpool? He's done a bunch of stuff recently that's really has solidified his credentials in the world of just making damn great movies. So we may never see another Hugh Jackman Wolverine movie ever again. And with the multiverse and everything else that's coming up, my mind kind of bends toward the fact that since Hugh Jackman is so hard to replace, so I mean, yes, he's going to be replaced at some point. There will be another male adult Wolverine that is not nearly 6 feet tall. In fact, Laura here as a Wolverine is closer to the actual height of, she's barely 4 feet tall. She's closer to the height of the Wolverine in the comics, but he's barely 5 feet tall in the comics. A very short Canadian. In this case, though, I have a feeling, and this is just my guess, I have no connection or knowledge of this whatsoever, but by the time we're done with Deadpool 3, once we get the whole introduction of the X-Men in whatever form, more integrated possibly by Secret Wars, we may see another X-Man. We may see another Wolverine, I should say, and it could be Laura. And it could be Daphne, because she's grown up. It's been a couple of years. I mean, I don't know, here she was 10 or something maybe when she made this. And she's fantastic, by the way. I'm usually pretty harsh on kids, but she expresses so much, so simply, so beautifully, of a girl who's been traumatized and now is suddenly out in the world, experiencing new things that she never has seen before. Just eating food with utensils is something like, there's a scene where they get taken in by a family that feeds them dinner and gives them shelter for the night as they're trying to cross the country to get to this mythical Eden, where it's believed that she can find freedom, where she's escaped from her captors in Mexico, and she can get with a bunch of other mutants to a place that ironically is Canada, home of Wolverine. So it's, can they make it there? But along the way, they meet Eric LaSalle. You might know him from ER and a bunch of other stuff, and his family, and they take them in, and you just see her sitting down for dinner with them. And Logan has to get her to use her fork to eat food. And she's just scooping as much as she can onto her plate, because she's just this little powerhouse of fire, a little ball of fire, a little ball of fury that needs as many calories as she can get, apparently. And yeah, she's just watch her. She doesn't have to say a word. She doesn't say a word for most of the film, until it's absolutely necessary. And just watch her, and you'll see she is absolutely fantastic. You immediately learn to care for her, not just because you know that she has a tragic story, but you genuinely like her, and you realize that, I mean, her first appearance as a Wolverine, as a little Wolverine, as X-23, in action, is taking down a bunch of goons and handing the head of one of them to the lead bad guy. And then there's another lead bad guy above that, Dr. Rice, played by, my brain just crapped out on me, Richard E. Grant. He played the classic Loki in the Loki series, season 1. You might recognize him. By the way, Boyd Holbrook plays Donald Pierce, which is another classic Marvel character, and he leads the Reavers, and they are a bunch of enhanced humans, usually like cyborgs type guys who are military based, and their job is to cut down mutants, capture or kill. So yeah, there's a lot of neat little Marvel comics nods throughout this, but they're not essential to know in order to appreciate them. Just for the nerds like me who go, yay, Donald Pierce? Like, no, I mean, they don't even say his name. Like, his name in the credits is Pierce, but when Dr. Rice mentions his friend Donald, and I'm like, okay, well, obviously it's Donald Pierce, so it's kind of cool. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about this. I like a lot of times, since I've already seen this film a number of times in the theater. I've had it on Blu-ray for God knows how long, but I don't think I've ever watched it since I got that. And now watching it here, I tend to put things on. I have multiple monitors in my office, and I can usually put one on while I work on some other things in the background. I got nothing done in the 2 hours and 19 minutes. A little bit here and there, but it sucked in my attention so much, especially the fight sequences, especially the utterly terrifying moment. Let's just say that Professor X has seen better days himself. He has a degenerative brain disease, and as a man who has psychic powers, mental powers, that's tremendously dangerous when if he has a seizure, if he is put under certain stresses. They're using as much medication as they can to keep him cut off, sedate, but it doesn't always work, especially when you don't take your meds. Yeah. So when things get one of my favorite scenes is when things get really, really intense. Professor X, his powers go a little bit kablooey, and everybody's kind of frozen in place, and just everything starts to shake and vibrate. And the only people who can kind of stand up to this are Logan and Laura, because of the strength of their bodies with the adamantium and everything else. I don't know. It's part of the story that makes sense. Okay, so instead of a big high speed, just punches, claws flying, everything else, this is a very deliberate, slow. The bad guys are mostly frozen in place, and they just one guy sees Wolverine coming. And just the terror on his face as Wolverine gets closer. He can't even really fully express it, but that guy knows he's screwed. And it's Logan doing everything he can to take on, to protect both Laura and the Professor. And yeah, and Laura can take care of herself. That's not a problem. She's the one who can heal pretty dang fast. Wolverine is old. Wolverine has put stuff in his body for so long that the government and God knows who many, or corporations and everything else, the people who wanted to get rid of mutants, he's been eating a lot of that stuff himself, or drinking some of that stuff himself. So yeah, he's not in a good place. So I've talked a lot about this. I could probably talk all night, because I know there's other things I wanted to mention in this, and I don't have a script in front of me, as you probably can tell, and this is all unedited. I never cut in order to make myself look better. It's all stream of consciousness. Literally finished it. The theme music at the end, speaking of which, there's no after credit sequence on this because it just wouldn't be appropriate. It's one of the things that with a movie like this, it just feels, you can't throw in a Stan Lee cameo or I'm making a silly comment or something like that, because it would just take you out of the film. I think as much as you want to see Stan, it would take you out of the film. And there's no after credit sequence teasing something else with these characters. Maybe you would tease something with Laura. No, maybe, because there's no saying that Daphne Keane would come back and play that role, but that would be kind of great if she did. If she's at least the actress she is here. Imagine. That might be kind of freaking cool. Even if it's just a cameo, like when the multiverse is going to start going crazy again. Kang is going to start messing things up even further. So let's just say that. Yeah. So yeah, it's for me. I'm looking forward to the possibilities with Wolverine and the X-Men. By the way, and of course, as we already know, Professor X dies in this, but he was back in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Not the same Professor X, but still, you got the gold chair and everything else, the gold hover chair. But yeah, I think it's kind of great. I think, this is, to me, the definitive Wolverine movie. It's not him at his peak. It's not him just totally kicking ass. He is absolutely kicking ass, but it's not a situation where he's going to win, because he does lose. But it's him fighting harder than he ever has in his entire life. It's not comic booky. It is bloody. It is violent. There's body parts chopped off, heads chopped off. It's gory as anything, because it's a rated R film and they can do that. All the F-bombs they want to say, Everybody gets to drop an F-bomb except the little girl, I think. Except for Daphne, I think. Out of our main characters, both Professor X and Wolverine are just dropping F-bombs left and right. This is not necessarily a film for kids. It's because it's dark and it's sad, but I think it really gets to the heart of the character, and a character who has been broken and still finds a reason to fight. And that's kind of fantastic. That's the way these stories should work. It's him rising from the ashes like a phoenix of sorts. Let's pick tomorrow's episode.
444.
444. What do we got in the 400s? Oh, well, this is a shorts or series of shorts. I have a feeling it's a series of shorts, so we'll probably watch one, maybe two. It all depends on how long they are. But we've seen other stuff from this. There's a few things. There's a main series, and there's a bunch of shorts. Anyway, this is Tots Calling All Tots. Talk about a shift in tone, fully, from ultra bloody, violent Logan to Tots Calling All Tots. On the next Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.